Okay, and if you would like to put that in slideshow mode for us.
Yeah.
There you go. Great.
All right. Let me minimize this screen. All right, welcome to Global Perspective. My name is Yvonne, and I will be presenting on a topic that is dear to me. I have timed myself because for the next 20 minutes, I'll be sharing a little bit about the findings of the study. And once my timing is off, I will stop and take questions and feedback. Before starting, I'd like to give all the glory to God who enabled me to start and to finish this research. I would also like to honor my father who is watching from Kinshasa right now. His name is Pira Kikangu. And also I'd like to thank my global community, including all of you who are here present and those who are not present. Thank you for your support and for your instruction and guidance. The purpose of my study was to explore the academic experiences of Black African graduate international students who are matriculating at historically and predominantly white universities in the US, and to understand how they make meaning of their experiences and how they perceive those experiences can be improved. One of the things that informed this study was personal experiences, but also there are numerous studies on the experience of international students in the US, which indicate that international students of color experience learning, inequitable learning outcomes due to issues related to race at institutions of higher education in the US. There are many factors that do impact the academic experience of international students, but within the context of this study, the focus was more on institutional factors such as the curriculum and the international student factors such as the multiple identities that they hold. For the participant in this study, some of the identities that they hold include being Black, being African, being non-American citizen, and also being speakers of a language, of a first language which is different from English. Because of the race issues which is involved in the study, critical race theory was the ideal framework to use for this study, to frame this study, because it is effective in investigating and understanding the issues of race, racism, and power within the field of education, and how these factors do perpetuate educational inequities in higher ed. There were 3 research questions that guided the study. The first one focused on the experiences of the students. The second one was centered around the meanings these students make of those academic experiences. And the last research question looked more on the suggestions that those students perceived will help in improving their learning outcomes. Current literature on international students indicates that there is a research gap when it comes to the academic experiences of Black African graduate international students who are matriculating at historically and predominantly white universities. And because of the gap in research, of course, research does inform policies, and policies that do inform instruction and practice. And so when there is a gap in research, there is also going to be a gap in policies and also in practice. And that has negative impact in terms of instruction, assessment, and the learning outcome of students who are excluded in the research. Because of the purpose of this study, qualitative research design was ideal, and mostly IPA, because it focuses on phenomena that manifest through lived experiences, and because the experiences of these students will be explored, therefore IPA was also effective to guide the study. 10 participants were selected purposively, and they were selected from different universities across the United States that do qualify for the study. This is a demographic depiction of the participants. They came from different countries. Many of them were in PhD programs, and 10% of them were fully online, while 40% of them were in person in terms of their instruction. Data were collected using semi-structured interviews, which lasted 75 minutes, and 41 questions were used, and the collection happened via Zoom. In terms of the analysis of data, line-by-line coding was used to discover themes with the help also of a qualitative software, Atlas, which helped in transcription and also with analyzing themes and also extracting some excerpts for the study. To control bias, best research practice was used, especially when it comes to the fact that as a researcher, I do belong to the demographic population and I have my own biases, but I made sure that those biases did not interfere or contaminate the data in terms of the different processes. And so I did follow best practice guidelines such as bracketing myself, which involved reflecting on my biases, documenting them, and reviewing them throughout the different stages of data collection and data analysis and the presentation of findings. The findings are presented in terms of the research questions. So for the first research questions, there were recurrent themes on the difficulties of transitioning within the American educational system. And there were recurrent themes also of social and racial isolation, especially in terms of some African students being the only one in their program or in their cohort. There was experiences of increased mental health challenges due to stressors such as financial issues, increased academic pressure, and that was coupled with a lack of effective or mental health resources and support services that were tailored for the specific needs of these students. And as a result, students had to develop their own coping strategies to address the challenges that they were experiencing. There was also positive experiences that are worth mentioning. Two participants did have positive academic experiences at their institution because their institutions were intentional on creating learning environments that were inclusive, that were safe, and that promoted the academic that promoted like equitable academic learning outcomes for all of their students. And for example, there was a student who indicated not feeling alone because the school was intentional on recruiting international students from diverse African countries and other European and Asian countries. And so the student did not feel alone, which helped in feeling welcome and included in the classroom and on campus. In terms of the second research question, the challenges that participant experiences, they frame them within a positive lens, seeing their adversities as a conduit for growth and the opportunity to develop the skills that will help them to be effective leaders and impact their communities within their sphere of practice and also globally. The third research question's findings revealed that participants perceive their academic experiences can be improved if historically and predominantly white U.S. Colleges and universities can be able to adopt culturally responsive pedagogies and culturally sensitive support services and resources. And there was one international student who was fully online, and he perceived that his experience can be improved if these universities will provide support services and resources that are particularly tailored for online international students of color. So, what do we do with these findings? Well, they call for a need for a change, because when we look at through the lens of literature, these findings are supported by current literature on international students of color, particularly when it comes to the issues of inequities within institutions of higher education in America. And also, when you look at through the lens of critical race theory, the narratives do not match. Historically and predominantly white universities claim to value global perspective, but then the narratives of students suggest that these institutions prioritize Western ways of teaching and assessing, which promotes whiteness, right, and devalues global perspective. Uh, uh, Likewise, there is also the narrative that doesn't match when it comes to inclusion. These institutions claim to be inclusive spaces. However, the stories of the participants indicate otherwise. And when you look at the intersectionalities of identities of these students, their narratives suggest that they are exposed to different forms of exclusion and discrimination in these institutions, which does not again match the narratives that these institutions claim when it comes to inclusion and equity and diversity. As you can see here from the narratives of the some of the participants, one indicated that, you know, he's even afraid to go pray as a Muslim and black male, because he's afraid of how he will be perceived, especially when he has witnessed some of his friends who also share the same identities being discriminated against. So what are the implications of this study? The value of this study is that it provides practical insights for policy and practice within higher education, specifically when it comes to institutions that are historically and predominantly white. And one of such insights is, for example, creating or developing a curriculum that are globally minded, so that all the students within the institution are being equipped with a global competence to be able to thrive in a highly and globally competitive world. And so why should people care about adopting these practical insights? Well, firstly, because of globalization, which is causing for a demand for workers who have global competence in terms of global perspective. And so you cannot have such workers in the market if you do not have institutions that are internalized in terms of the diversity of the students that are being recruited, and which are coming with global perspective and being able to exchange those perspectives to provide cultural competence, which is essential in thriving in a highly globalized world. And the consequence of not caring, for those who may say, you know what, it's not important to include to adopt these practical insights. The consequence of rejecting the adoption of these insights is that, first of all, the economic impact. International students contribute yearly over $30 billion to the American economy. So when you do not care, you risk losing money, and everybody cares about money. And so there is money at stake. But also when it comes to the mission of higher education in the US, one of their missions is to cultivate leaders who can be able to change their world. And you cannot cultivate effective leaders who can change their world if you are not creating opportunities for greater inclusion, which will enable those leaders to be exposed to the diverse thinking and diverse culture, which will equip them for the world for which you are preparing them to lead. And so the consequence of not caring is that there will be a lack of integrity, especially when it comes to the ethical responsibility and the mission of these institutions in training those kind of leaders. In terms of the limitations of the study, of course, because of the methodology and the sample size, which was small, the study was limited and it cannot be generalized. There is also the issue of inherent bias. I am Black, I am African, I am not yet an American citizen, and I am a bilingual. And these are aspects of my life that I cannot change. But I made sure that these aspects of my life, including my experiences, my assumptions and biases, did not contaminate the study by adopting best research practice, such as bracketing myself and consulting with experts throughout the different research processes to ensure that the data, the presentation of data, albeit also the collection of data and the presentation of the data were not contaminated with my own biases. Some of the recommendations for future research will be to utilize different methodologies such as mixed method and to expand the site of recruitment, for example, looking into non-historically and predominantly white institutions in the US, and also including multiple investigators with diverse background within the study. The key takeaway for this research is that there is a disparity between between theory and practice when it comes to the instruction, the assessment, and the overall academic experiences of international students because of underlying systemic and structural issues within institutions that recruit them. And there is a need for a reform. There is a need for change. My time is up and I'm going to stop there and take questions and feedback. And I'm gonna stop sharing.
Okay, well, still my line. Questions, anybody?